Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and a lot more is happening in the Epstein saga as we get new news of the Epstein victims after meeting at Capitol Hill with a bunch of different politicians, talking about releasing the Epstein files on their own. Now, many of us know that the Epstein files are indeed actually an Israeli Mossad operation. So there's videos, there's blackmail content for sure. So the United States can't really release most of what is actually out there. But of course, there has been a massive cover up, and it has pushed a lot of people to the breaking point over Trump. And of course, the correlation between Trump, Clinton, and others with Epstein. Of course, this came out recently, breaking 33,295 pages of records related to Jeffrey Epstein have been released. As I wrote on Exit at World Alt Media, always 33. I guess I have a lot of reading ahead of me, but the actual blackmail he gained from people will not be seen. Israel holds that info. This comes as, of course, Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene call for talking about the entire Epstein list in front of the House. So this would be a major move for sure. As Trump reprimands them and says anyone that supports getting this Epstein list out will be primary to death and be basically destroyed politically. That's an insane threat, considering we're talking about thousands of children who've been raped and trafficked. Over 100,000 emails from former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak showed that he and Epstein discussed meeting with Palantir founder Peter Thiel. There's some crazy stuff with that, as well as Jean-Luc Brunel, who also mysteriously died, quote unquote, in prison. We're going to get into this and much more, and how Trump is reacting and where this is going next. Before we do, I urge people to check those links below. Check out vni.life/wham, W-A-M, in the description for super supplements. This is amazing, though. We have Protovite here. If you use code WHAM15, W-A-M-15, all one word, you'll get 15% off on this with 100 plus vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that help cellular health, immune function, etc., circulation. Look at this. This is before and after. We see toxins in the blood. We see a bad circulation. 5 minutes after taking Protovite, you see restored negative charge, red blood cells freely flowing, and the white blood cells are 4 times their size. This usually takes a month to do. So I urge people to check this out below. Again, vni.life/wham. It's in the description of the video for this amazing supplement going forward. It's always good to have this kind of stuff on hand, and you can subscribe and save even more money over at vni.life and get these products regularly delivered to your home. Let's get into this. So this is out of the New American. It says Epstein victims consider releasing their own list. The co-sponsors of a bill that would force the government to release all available Jeffrey Epstein documents held an hour-long press conference Wednesday that included statements from Epstein victims. One said that she and others were considering releasing their own list, and I quote, "We Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list," Lisa Phillips said. "We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know who are regularly in the Epstein world. It'll be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details." Now, we have to remember that if they were to release these names openly as they are individuals, they could be sued into the ground, because unless you have the tapes, which Israel holds as blackmail against these politicians, among others, obviously the CIA is involved too, but as they hold the stuff against politicians and world leaders, etc., and business leaders and actors, celebrities, etc., if they release their names and they don't have the video footage of it, which I'm sure they don't even want to see, then they can be sued into the ground. So it's become a major issue right now on Capitol Hill, as we see 33,325 pages of records related to Jeffrey Epstein have been released. Again, why is it always 33? Everything's always 33. The symbolism is in our faces, my friends. And what we're witnessing right now is an absolute psyop. I have no doubt about it, because, of course, the reality is that you cannot actually get your hands on these files. Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene will read the Epstein client list on House floor, protected by constitutional immunity. Patriots, says Antunes1 on X. Now, I love Thomas Massie. I've had him on our show many times. We've talked about many controversial issues, and I do appreciate him as a person. I'm not someone that supports politicians. I do like individuals, though, and that do good things. And I like Thomas Massie for putting a lot of the information out there and having the podium to do so. So that's all good. But, you know, this is something that Trump is going after Thomas Massie big time on. And one has to ask why. I mean, Donald Trump Jr. said a couple years ago, we need to release the Epstein files now. Anyone that's trying to cover for this scumbag should be asked why, what, or how are they compromised? You should be asking that every day, he said. Well, Trump is calling it a Democrat hoax, which is making it more of a Democrat issue, by the way. Thomas Massie says on X, survivors at a press conference announced they are privately compiling their own Epstein list. They would be sued into homelessness for naming names, but Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and I are willing to name names in the House of Representatives under constitutional speech or debate immunity. So very interesting indeed. Of course, we see video that went viral of Representative Nancy Mace storming out of the Epstein hearing, flustered and crying. It says, huge Republican Representative Nancy Mace just defied Trump and signed the Massie Kana petition to release the full Epstein files after she suffered a panic attack and ran out of a meeting with Epstein victims in tears. Survivors are speaking. Trump's cover-up is collapsing. It's not just Trump's cover-up. It's the establishment's cover-up. They have something on him. Everyone is compromised. There's left and right both. This isn't a political issue. At the end of the day, what we're dealing with is a child trafficking ring run by world governments. Generally, it seems to be Israel. And using it as bait and, of course, blackmail against politicians so that they can confirm their order that they are creating and ensure that it stays on script. Across the board, why do you think everyone always agrees with each other at the same time? What do you think happened in 2020 when all the governments around the world said the exact same thing at the exact same time? The general on X says a major leak of 100,000 emails from former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak shows he and Jeffrey Epstein discussed meeting with Palantir founder Peter Thiel, trying to arrange it so the security guys will not come with us to the island. Now, the correlation between Peter Thiel, Palantir, and of course the Israeli government, and of course the Epstein blackmail ring is becoming more and more obvious. Whitney Webb has been talking about this for quite some time. I have two of her books behind me, One Nation Under Blackmail, which both volumes 1 and 2 are great. But we see these documents coming out. Of course, we have to also remember that Palantir is the same company that is indiscriminately bombing children in Gaza using their AI technology. So this is something that, of course, has been going on for some time. Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, laughed about profiling from killing Palestinians using AI. He calls them Hamas useful idiots and mostly terrorists. But again, this is a guy who's laughing and giggling as the U.S. government gives him a contract, by the way, to, of course, one of the biggest ones recently was the master database on all Americans. But of course, they have multiple contracts, including with Starlink and, of course, with Stargate, which is an AI protocol that they push forward, which Trump on day 2 put $500 billion into. This is the email between Jeffrey Epstein and Ehud Barak, one of them anyway. Thanks. Peter Thiel could be very interesting, but I'm flying to Europe, redacted. Next time, best. And then I have Peter Thiel on the 19th in New York, if you like, as well as the former president of the Maldives. Okay, so there's a lot going on with all of this. Of course, what we're dealing with is a lot of it being procuring children, which we'll get into in a moment with what we have with Jean-Luc Brunel. But look at this one. There's this image. Julian's Rum says on X, Israel's prime minister stopped by Epstein's apartment more than the fucking mailman. But this is completely irrelevant and we shouldn't talk about it, says Trump. Yeah. And again, we have to remember that Jeffrey Epstein boasted himself about being Mossad to his girlfriends and got a plea deal over being a government blackmail agent. So the cover-up is obvious. And they will release some fake stuff, I'm sure, as well, limited hangout stuff, in order to tell part of the truth, but not the entirety of the truth, in order to stop people from seeing the entirety of the truth. This came from Mari Nafal on X. He says, Epstein files, Epstein associate Jean-Luc Brunel note reveals teacher offer. A disturbing message recovered from Jeffrey Epstein's files shows modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel offering Epstein a teacher to give Russian lessons. The note specifies the girl was 2 times 8 years old and not blonde. It adds that lessons would be free and could start today if you call. Brunel, long accused of supplying girls to Epstein, was arrested in France in 2020 on sex trafficking charges before dying in prison in 2022. And this, the source of this is a DOJ document release message dating April 11th, 2005. You could see the message here. He says to Jeffrey Epstein, this is from, again, Brunel. He says, he has a teacher for you to teach you how to speak Russian. She is 2 times 8 years old, not blonde. Lessons are free, and you can have first today if you call. Not creepy at all, huh? As I wrote on X at World Alt Media, I said, obvious agents are obvious. Both their assignments were compromised, so they dropped their fake name and character and moved away. The claims is they both died in prison. Okay, then. Yeah, this idea that they both died in prison is absurd, in my opinion. We talk about this stuff all the time. That's why I have this post with me having about 33,500 followers on X. I have 3 likes on it in 2 days and 589 views. That's how shadow banned we are on X. Make sure to go follow us there just to help pump us up a little bit. But this is, what we're dealing with here. These guys are both clearly agents. They've used people that are legitimately rich people as agents, as we saw with Diddy, in my opinion. And of course, what we saw with Jimmy Savile. And of course, what we're seeing with Epstein, and by the looks of it, Jean-Luc Brunel, who again was heavily involved with Epstein, and both of them mysteriously died in prison. We always hear about them dying in prison. Kind of like how they said that Epstein died in prison after, they said the tapes mysteriously shut off, like the cameras mysteriously shut off and malfunction right as it happened, and they lost a minute in the footage, and then they lost the footage, and they couldn't find the footage, and then suddenly they have footage after they said it didn't exist anymore. They release it with 1 minute missing from it, and mysterious figures walking around in the background. The guy, the mobster that they had roomed with Epstein, being moved out like the day before, against protocol, the day before, from Epstein's cell. You could go on and on. Pam Bondi, we have the documents. We're going to release them. Gives them out to Zionist influencers. Says, here it is. Totally redacted. Total joke. Basically a parody. And then says, oh, we lost the files. And then, oh, there never were files. And, oh, it's a Democrat hoax. And Trump saying it's a Democrat hoax is so insane, considering he ran on this. And I've been talking about this since 2009, long before Trump ever decided to run. Under Obama, I was talking about it. I went to the police about Peter Nygard in Canada over raping a 14-year-old girl. And of course, they laughed me out of the police station at the time. Now he's in prison. And of course, they were the first investigations that really delved deep into Epstein, where he got arrested, was under the Bush administration. So what is he talking about as a Democrat hoax? Well, the more you push this narrative that it's a Democrat hoax, the more it becomes a Democrat issue. The reality is we have people who were 10 years old who were raped. There's a lot of girls that have been murdered that a lot of people have drawn to Epstein, by the way. But Sovereign Bra says on X, Jeffrey Epstein victim says, and I quote, I was 10 years old. I was raped 3 times a day sometimes. I was not the only girl on that island. There was a constant stream of girls being raped over and over and over again. All those files need to be released. And this is, according to Trump, a hoax. This is just a distraction from the great things he's doing. What? Selling us out to AI, bombing different countries, bombing, people from Venezuela and in Iran after giving Hellfire missiles to preemptively attack Iran for Israel, which mysteriously he raised the military budget to $1 trillion solely for Israel to annex Palestine and bomb Iran, the largest military spending budget in history, after then calling the whole Epstein thing a hoax. Funny how that works. All the great stuff we're doing. Great, yeah. I'm not afraid to say the name, says Marjorie Taylor Greene. Jeffrey Epstein's cabal of politicians, bureaucrats, and elites who turn a blind eye must be held accountable. This is the product of past administrations, Republican and Democrat, trying to silence victims. They deserve justice, and America deserves the truth. And of course, nonetheless, Trump reacts after Epstein survivors demand he stop calling it a hoax. a bunch of victims of Epstein who said that they were raped asked that he stop calling it a hoax. And Trump immediately dismissed the victims and their claims, something he's done since a devastating story took over the news cycle earlier this summer. And I quote, "So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends," Trump said. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. He redacted most of the files, and then he gave us one section and not the Israeli section where everyone was talking for a long time about the clear correlation, which witnesses on the ground and witnesses who are in the CIA said themselves was connected directly to Mossad. But okay, whatever. We could go on and on about that. But he says, from what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given, but it's really a Democrat hoax. Okay, so first there's pages, there's documents, but it's also a hoax. So which is it? Because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Now, this is more grassroots. Of course, the media is latching onto this and creating their own narratives around it, but this is grassroots because we're talking about something that people have been shouting for years that they want released. I mean, people like, then we have the mainstream alternative media. Ben Shapiro declares Epstein case closed. Facts on the ground have changed, he says. Absolutely ridiculous. And then we have other people in the mainstream alternative media that are covering for Mossad. The Quartering says everyone at that ridiculous Epstein press release was an anti-Trumper. I want justice for the victims too, but it is looking more and more like Trump is right about this recent push being a Democrat op. We're never getting a list. Politicians do that, and they're grifting. Listen, the reason we see so many Democrats pushing up against Epstein right now is because Trump has given it to them by calling it a hoax and getting his own people pissed off at him, rightly so. That leads to obviously who's the other side. The other side of the paradigm is a Democrat. So of course the Democrats are going to be the ones speaking the most loudly because a bunch of people, Trump is literally threatening to end the careers of Republicans that speak out against Epstein and want files. And again, I've always said this should never be political. When I remember, I'm old enough to remember a couple of years ago when you talk about Epstein, you were called a far right extremist. If you talk about Clinton and his clear involvement with Epstein, going to African countries with Kevin Spacey, and of course, doing really sketchy stuff with him, and obviously being seen multiple times being with young women and being procured women. When he talked about that, people would say, well, what about Trump? And then when you talk about Trump, people say, well, what about Clinton? It's like, and Trump was involved in a lawsuit with a 12-year-old back long before he was running for president with Epstein. So it's like, it's not a Democrat hoax. It's not a Republican hoax. It's a blackmail operation that people are trying to change the narrative of and make it this leftist thing, a right-wing thing. Excuse me. When in reality, what we're dealing with is a blackmail operation by a foreign government who works within your own government as well, who collects information in order to, one, they victimize children and women. They have a steady flow videotaping sex between minors, gays, and women to these politicians, whatever it needs to be to get those politicians to be complacent with whatever they're told to do. And then they use that. That's not justifying the politicians. Those politicians should be in prison, but then they use that against them to force their views on the public through the politician as like a middleman. And then they can continue the narratives that they're trying to push across the board and normalize across the board. So this all makes total sense to me. This is exactly what they've been doing for a long time. And of course, Epstein is one of many characters, because they're basically cartoon characters. They're not, Epstein didn't actually exist. There's never a guy named Jeffrey Epstein. There wasn't a guy who was a high school teacher who just suddenly became a billionaire, who's never seen on Wall Street, by the way, as this hedge fund guy on Wall Street that he claimed to be. Had private jets and had an island and was procuring all these women. They are government agents. This story that Jeffrey Epstein has cannot happen. It's not a real thing. And he's one of many people, and his name wasn't really Jeffrey Epstein. He was an agent that worked for Mossad. And then, of course, I would say the same thing for Ghislaine Maxwell, who gave out that bullshit testimony last week to get pardoned. And of course, we reported on that at the time. Her father being Robert Maxwell, one of major guys in the Mossad and getting a full IDF funeral when he passed away mysteriously when he fell from a boat. And of course, we have Peter Nygard, who had an island close to Epstein. We have Diddy, who, of course, had his own island and has done very similar things with video cameras in every room. To me, it seems obvious, but here we are. They create characters. He probably didn't even kill himself or die in prison. He probably got moved into a new protective program by Israel, because this is without a doubt an Israeli op, and it's obvious. But why on earth would Trump want to ignore one of the biggest things that his supporters want so much and destroy his reputation so badly? Why would he want to do that? Unless he's compromised. Let's be real. Let's face reality, my friends. He's compromised. So is Clinton. So are people like Prince Andrew. So are so many others. I mean, Representative Nancy Mace said that after walking out of that Epstein hearing, she wants to beat Prince Andrew to death. She heard something in there by a victim regarding Prince Andrew that was horrifying, she claims. So again, we have the continuation of a cover-up, and of course we now are hearing, okay, well, there's all these documents, and what about all the documents? The reality is the FBI seized a bunch of tapes at his Manhattan townhouse, Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. The reason I'm thinking of Trump, and there's a Freudian slip there, is because Epstein's next door neighbor was Howard Lutnick, who in 2016 was hosting Clinton fundraisers next door to Epstein. Now is the head of his transition team and is also in a place of power within the Trump administration, is always behind Trump when Trump calls it a Democrat hoax and says there's nothing to see there. Clear correlation. Then there's a Miriam and Sheldon Adelson correlation, and with Mossad and Netanyahu, nominating him for a Nobel Peace Prize. And of course, again, we have those videos. The FBI found them. The FBI then said they lost the videos, just like they claimed that they lost the tapes from the prison, and then suddenly they put it out with a minute missing. And of course, Epstein himself boasted about being Mossad. And of course, Epstein got a plea deal over this. And Alexander Acosta, who, by the way, is one of the people who is being interviewed and subpoenaed right now by the DOJ over Epstein. He was, during the Trump transition team meetings in 2016 to 2017, claimed that he gave Epstein a plea deal when he was going for labor secretary in the first Trump administration. This has been going on for a while, and the blackmail is obvious. And they're going to continue to say, oh, we have new documents, we have new stories, just to give us a little bit here and there. But again, like I said earlier, it's what the CIA calls a limited hangout operation. Tell part of the truth, but not the entirety of the truth, in order to misdirect people from the entirety of the truth. We need the truth because we have children, thousands of them, who have been molested, who have gone missing, have gone murdered. Let's not mention like Bohemian Grove here. On top of that, there's the Franklin scandal. We could go on and on and on. It's pure evil what we've witnessed, and we're just getting to the tip of the iceberg here. We need more information, and the Epstein list names, fine. But there are videos that the government has seen of politicians high up raping kids, and they've been hushed into secrecy somehow. Why do you think that is? Well, I urge you all to comment below. What do you think of this recent development and the mainstream alternative media's normalization of this being just some Democrat hoax, by the way? Who do you think is going to be speaking out the most if one side is calling it a hoax and the other side isn't? Obviously, yeah, seeing Colbert and stuff talking about it, yeah, these people are total shills. But why else? You're giving it to them. You're giving them the story. Why else would they be talking about it if it weren't for you calling it a damn hoax? And the most sketchy people in media saying that Epstein's case is closed. Well, weird, because by the looks of it, from Nancy Mace's face as she ran out of the Epstein victim testimony hearing, it looks like this is not case closed, and there's a lot more to come. So anyway, we're gonna go into this more again, obviously in the future. I've been talking about this since 2009. We have videos going back to 2014 on this on our channel, and others. So we're going to close this off. But as always, my friends, I hope people go and check those links below. Hit the like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, hit subscribe if you have not yet already on Rumble and BitChute. And go and check out vni.life/wham, W-A-M, where you can get these super supplements. Again, amazing stuff. Wham 15 for 15% off. Links in the description. 100 plus vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients in Protovite, which is absolutely amazing. Again, look at the before and after. Horrible circulation issues among most people out there. Well, then 5 minutes after taking this, restore negative charge, red blood cells freely flowing, and 4 times the size of those white blood cells. This is something that usually takes a month or two to do. Absolutely incredible stuff. So go and check that out. vni.life/wham. Also check out Wave Watch. Our link is in the description, where you can get $100 off when you use code WHAM, W-A-M. This is amazing stuff. Again, improve your sleep, reduce stress, fight pain, boost energy. It has 1,100 plus frequencies on your wrist. Against all these bad frequencies that we deal with on a daily basis. Check this out. Really cool stuff. All in the description. Also, heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Use code WHAM, W-A-M, and you'll get 5% off as well as free shipping on these orders in the United States. Highly recommend people go and get on this today. Stock up while you can. Don't fall into the system, the new blackmail system for you. Will not be like Epstein. It'll be the fact that you will have a low social credit score. You will have a digital ID. You will have food rationed to you based on how you behave. Don't get stuck in that digital system, that technocratic system. Get on this today. And as we close this off, I appreciate any help we can get. We have gogetfunding.com, Patreon, and Subscribestar. Anything helps, my friends. You guys have helped keep us alive thus far, and we could not thank you enough. Without you, we would honestly be finished. I mean, we've gone through bankruptcy after bankruptcy lately, and down to I had $20 for 3 weeks straight last month to my name. This is all about we've been getting absolutely silenced and shut down for daring to go up against the mainstream alternative narrative and the mainstream narrative, and just being realistic and honest in our approach. Those of you that help support us, we truly cannot thank you enough. So we have gogetfunding.com. We have Patreon and Subscribestar. Both Patreon, Subscribestar, and of course, exit at World Alt Media. When you pledge $4.99 a month or more, you'll get exclusive content, which again, that includes early access as well as exclusive videos, as well as you can message us and get customizable video answers from us. We have a PayPal address, ancientwonderstelevision@gmail.com. And we have a Bitcoin address that you can scan on the screen here, or check out in text form in the description. We have a Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in if you please, including privacy coins. And of course, we are, we have our Teespring store linked in the description below, where you could get, you could purchase merchandise, which really helps us as well and gets the word out on the street. Find us on Telegram, Rockfin. Of course, we're on Band.video, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. We're on Hive, Steemit, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson. And on the Bad Guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media, and all the major podcast platforms except for Spotify, where we are, of course, banned. As always, this is all about living by example, living freely. We need to understand this. We need to know the truth. We need to push forward to get, obviously, justice for all these victims and stop it from continuing to happen, which it still is. It's just a different name. It just isn't Epstein this time. So I appreciate everyone watching. Until next time, live freely, live by example. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.